Mit Fachreb Schleimer. Welcome back.
Okay. Okay, it's been a little while. So a quick review of where we're up to. We're talking about the responsibility of a mechanech, the importance of doing it right, how harmful it could be if we do it wrong. The first thing that the Perek is telling us to do as mechanech is and how important this is. And last time we spoke about how when a person is stuck in his avos atzmai, in his immature avos atzmai, so then he sees all his chesroinus as milas, and not only he doesn't see his own chesroinus, he ends up seeing his chesroinus in others, which means in his talmidim. And even if someone tries to put a mirror in front of them, they have all kinds of explanations of how the other party is wrong, the ma'ir is wrong. So today we'll focus on finishing Perek Gimel, hopefully Perek Daled as well. We're just finishing this segment of the preparation before we talk about how we're supposed to deal with our talmidim, our mudrachim, our mushpoim, dealing with ourselves first. So there's the famous joke of was Matzah Shabbos in a shul. We'll say it, was Matzah Shabbos in a shul, and right of Zena a video, right? And punk, there's a guy sitting in front of you, right? Wearing a hat, kaminig. And you ask him, please, you're blocking me. Can you please take off your hat? So the guy says, Lo, yesh li shita, ani lo morid takova. Okay, say there. You want to be machabed the shittas. So you think he'll move to the side. He's moving to the side. You move to the other side. He moves to the other side. The kitzer, stert mekenu and garnished. You decide to take the guy's hat and throw it off. The Vertness Gala, this guy has a major bald spot. So the good old word, Chabibi, im yesh lecha karachat, al taseh mizeh shita. If you have a bald spot, don't turn it into a philosophy. So this is a joke, but this is something that every one of us could easily find ourselves doing, because we're so stuck in this blindness of avos atzmai that we're afraid to notice our own weaknesses, and we build shittas, we build philosophies to justify that the way we're doing things is the right way to do it, and other ways of doing it is wrong. And if we're going to take a survey and ask everyone, what's the most important thing in chinuch? What's the most important thing in chinuch? So everyone's going to say something else. One's going to say it has to be with an emes. One's going to say you have to care for the talmidim. One's going to say you have to have the right hashkafa. You have to know the Rebbe's letters bopeh. Another one's going to say you have to read the sichos of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Everyone's going to tell you something else. And punkt b'hashkacha pratis, it's going to be very interesting to find that every one of those people happened to be good at that area that they decided is the most important thing in chinuch. And if you're going to tell them something else, the most important thing in chinuch, this is stam, the kevish emaisis, this is pop psychology, this is goyish shita, right? We're going to be mevatel everything that we're not good at and glorify everything we're good at. So we're the perfect mechanech, or the perfect chassid, the perfect anything. And this is something that's natural. We all like feeling that we're good. But what this ends up doing is that this destroys us as people. But over here, talking as mechanchim, this is extremely detrimental to our avodah as mechanchim. So let's just finish off Perek Gimel. Oy v'avoy lahem l'briyas halalu. Shelevad zois ki choytem him l'oisa kavana shekadosh baruch hu heridas nishmasam nigeram l'beir amikta b'olam zeh la'avda l'shama bekinyim midas tevis noisif alimentary shmiyas kiyam mitzvahs. Besides the fact that they're missing the point of what their neshama came down here lamata for. We came down here lamata, besides being mekayim Torah mitzvahs, we have a shlichus to work on ourselves, Chutz mizeh, shema abdi rachmanu latzlan, esa ilui, shoya oilam amayla seruchni, sabayim al schar bal madasi. They missed the opportunity of what they could have reached, what they could have accomplished. In the oids is shen isharim heima lavuz lacherpas oilam. Their name will always be remembered forever for their chisreinis, for their mistakes. So it's a eternal shame that's attached to their name, and everyone else sees it but them. But they're too blind to see their own chesronis. This natural avodah is the way it is from birth before avodah. So he misses his opportunity and he loses his moral life and his purpose, his human purpose. Interessante Lashonos. Chai Adam Bal Medein in Ulchama Atzuma Bein Hatov V'Ra, Ha'emes V'Hasheker, Ha'noah V'Hamaguna. It's a war. It's a constant mulchama between the two sides that we have in ourselves. So B'Shas mulchama in Echad HaTachsisim, V'Bikoyres HaChadav HaMesuderes, Afilu Ala Oyevim V'Yedidim Tzichim L'Shkiach Bein P'kicha, Im Emalem Heim Schivasim, L'Hoyel L'Natzech Esoy. Okay, if you care for a soldier, you want to make sure he's doing things right. And you have to constantly assess the situation honestly to see if everyone is fulfilling their mission. So this is basic need in every mulchama, to have a very honest assessment of what's going on. Well, in Nartzich that we're doing a good job and we're not, that's not how we're going to win. Typo there, sorry. Obviously, you need to assess very strongly your enemies, especially when there are spies. These are the people you need to keep the strongest eye on. What is this in the Nimshal? This soina mistater big the oyev is avas atzmai. So this fools us like a spy, like a enemy that's hiding, that's dressed up like a friend, and he's fooling us on every step. So anyone that wants to live a life according to the shlichus that he was given, so this is something that we must have in order to fulfill our shlichus. Kitzer avos atzmei, mitas ha'adam, v'abikeres, machsheres oisei, v'avoda priya. So preparation for a successful work in anything is critical assessment of ourselves. Honest, critical assessment. Okay, so that's Perek Gimel. So he's not really telling us so much about the assessment. He's just telling us how important it is that we have this assessment and what the enemy is. The enemy is the Avas Atzmai. We have this immaturity that we have a hard time seeing our own chesonis. And we need to be conscious of that. Now he's going to move into Perek Dalid, what the actual bikuris of Mechanech Mamadrich b'yachas la'atzmai. Rabbi, you're way too quiet tonight.
No, I think a piece over here to add. I'm saying there's the Friedrich Rebbe is in his language. There's a lot of subtleties, but one of the pieces are to recognize that we instinctively will do things a certain way, not because necessarily it's right, but because, in other words, that's a given that we all have instinctive ways how we deal with things, how we respond, or how we think. At the same time, within us, we have that ability to uncover much deeper ways. So in other words, here's where, in other words, the Friedrich Rebbe, look back at that Lashon, where the Friedrich Rebbe says the Eibishter was mechalkel you with all your mezainos of haruchnim. In other words, whatever it is that we need exists inside of us. But our muskal rishon, our instinctive response, is not necessarily the better one. So in other words, we have to go from acting instinctively to refining ourselves in finding what is the right way, and then retraining ourselves. It all exists inside of us. It's not that I don't have it, but if I don't refine my response, then I'm acting on instincts, and that's where the avas atzmai is maseh. It blinds me, because why should I look to change my response if the way I do things is perfect? If the way I do things is the right way? You know, the shaila is if it's worth it. Sometimes we can find it insulting, but sometimes I can find it rewarding. Is it worth it to give examples where we do things instinctively, but yet it's simply, in other words, can you give an example of something that a person may do so due to his own nature, and he turns it into a shita, and it's not a weakness?
There's so many things we do as parents, our instinctive reaction when a child isn't listening, or when they spill something all over the table, in the classroom, when things get out of control. So I think that almost always, unless a person's really ibergarbet, the natural reaction is we feel threatened, we feel overwhelmed, and we're going to overwhelm them. And if we stop and think, then we could always come up with something smarter. But if we know that we have to stop and think, I remember when we were young parents, so my wife and I would go to different workshops, parenting workshops. The Moistas had some over here. There was different things available here in Crown Heights. And I remember we were walking back from one of the workshops. My wife says, you know, in one workshop, they said, if your kid spills the milk, get onto the floor with them and clean it together. The other one says, when the kid spills the milk, ask them, oh, what just happened? Like, how do you describe it? What do you think we should do? The other workshop gave up Sadrita Eitzah. And therefore, everyone has a different mahalach. Which mahalach are you supposed to take? What are you supposed to do? Like this is confusing. So I remember the maskana we came to is as follows. I think what we took from all the workshops is that when the milk spills on the floor, don't react with the natural reaction. Stop. Someone said it was a smart way to react. It was something good to do. It's okay. If you stop and think, there's probably a smart way, there's an educational way of me doing this. Stop and think. You're going to come up with something just as smart as any of those Bali shittas. Because as soon as you stop and you're not acting from that natural instinct, and you're thinking as a mechanech with the responsibility, what's really needed in this moment? What does this child need? And we think how this moment could be a defining moment in their life. If we do it right, this could really be building them. If we're doing it wrong, this could be hurting them. Stop. You'll come up with something brilliant. That brilliance might be to ignore them. The brilliance might be to have a discussion. The brilliance might be to just, I had that today. Okay, a little embarrassing of the original threat. The kids were running around the house with broomsticks. And besides the fact they were hitting each other, banging it on the furniture and on the walls and on the windows, it was all over the place. So I took them away. So they went and took it again. So I said, if you take the oy va'avoy, if you take the broomsticks again, I threatened them, it's gonna hurt. Anyway, so one of them went and took it. It was a little one that couldn't even understand anything. So, and he got away with it. So the other one said, oh, he didn't get a pot. So the other one went back and brought his broomsticks as well. So I gave a threat, not only I feel violated, I'm trying to learn Rambam, and my kids aren't listening to me. And they're running around the house and scratching the Svarim Shafa. And what most
you have to keep your words. You got to follow through.
They're scratching me, right? And they can't get away with it. So I stopped and I thought, and I said, you know what? I'm going to take them both and sit them down near me and hold them near me quietly. Smile to them this, and you're gonna have to calm down. When you're ready to play nicely, you could continue playing nicely, but without doing anything that's going to hurt them, without screaming, without coming from a place of anger. But my immediate reaction was they deserve a patch, and that's programmed in us. Not only we think it's programmed in us because we're coming from a generation that we would get patches from our teachers, from our parents, from whatever. That's our natural reaction when our ego is hurt by our kids, by our talmidim. We were hurt, and we want to hurt back. We want to we want to gain back our lost respect. And if we don't smell that that's what's going on, that I'm taking this personal, kids are acting like kids and I'm taking this personal, and we really believe that we're going to save them by smacking them or by humiliating them or whatever it is. And if we stop and say, what really has to happen, they do need to be educated. They should not be running around with the broomsticks, should not be ignoring it. I should stop it. I could do that in a loving way. I could do that even in a fun way. I could figure out, maybe I have to close my eye and give them attention. And that's all that's needed over here, because that perhaps is what they're asking for.
I would add, that's very powerful. And I would add just another point, maybe to bring it out, is that a lot of times there is taka truth to all of our instincts. In other words, the Eibishter gave us all of these instincts, and like the Friedrich Rebbe once said, Benegea politics, that for every view, whether it should be democracy, theocracy, tyranny, whatever you want to call it, you can find everything. You can find a makar in Torah. So in other words, there's emes. Every one of our instincts have a makar in Torah. In other words, it was created by Torah. We're created by Torah. We're Yitzir Kapish LaKadosh Baruch Hu. The biggest key to refining ourselves is usually to find a balance. Is usually in other words, to not be limited by my natural response. So, Lamashal, one of the things that I think is very powerful in Perek Yavis, it says, "Toiv erech hapayim migiber." So, Toiv erech hapayim migiber, usually we translate it is that someone who is an erech hapayim, someone who has a long temperament, is more powerful than a giber, than a strong person. But there's a very tifetayich that the Bartanura brings down as another possible explanation. Toiv erech hapayim, when it's praiseworthy that a person has a long temperament? Migiber, if it's coming from strength and not from weakness. In other words, if a person has a long temperament because he has no power in his character to react, you don't have a long temper. You're a weak person. You're a weak person. When is toiv erech apayim? Mi giber, when it's a choice. Al derech zeh. In other words, you have a certain mechanech that by him, he's very, very disciplined. For this mechanech, the biggest kunz is when he learns vitzu far cooking. There's another mechanech, though, that is salazin. Not salazin, but natirlich is salazin. Is salazin avzich. For him, it's not a kunst zu vergucken auf a Talmud. Verguckt the ganze Tag. For him, the kunst is the opposite. So, in other words, a big part of when we don't have when we're not blinded by Avas Atzmai, is to be able to look inside ourselves and to say, am I doing this simply because this is my easiest mode of operation? Or is this the right thing? Toiv erech apayim, is my erech apayim coming from Gvura and not from Tzalazenkite? Is my discipline of the Talmud coming because be'emes I think it's Tevasai, or it's because I need control? And al derech zeh we can give example upon examples. You have different people. Let's take another generalization, maybe from the world and personalities. There's two types of reactions. There's people that explode, and there's people that implode. Inside explosion, we all know what it looks like. Person raises his voice, screams, he gets angry. You can feel it. Imploding is where we shut down, we remove, whatever it is. Now, some people will compliment themselves. You never see me screaming. Almost thinking, I'm like a superhuman person. I never respond, right? I know how to control my reaction. You don't know how to control your reaction. You just react differently. You react by imploding, right? Now, this person is very likely to make a shita that if a parent is talking to him disrespectful on the phone, he's going to hang up the phone, or he's going to just put it down and not listen. Now, he's proud of the skill that he doesn't scream back, but that's not a skill. It may be nice. It's in his mannerism. He disconnects. He doesn't respond. So, in other words, in each character, almost to come to a better balance is when we each learn how to do the other thing. For the person that naturally implodes, it's almost healthier to sometimes make a response, speak up, communicate how you disagree. For the person that explodes, in other words, he is always, communicating his response on the outside. For him to learn how to do it a little bit more internally, hold it back a little bit, la'azen. So, I mean, we can go again. We can think about so many examples in our own life, and in everything we encounter. There is truth to every type of reaction, but we're only going to be able to tame it if we're ready to realize where it's valuable and where it's its limitations.
Yep. I think that leads us into Perek Daled. Taking this more into details of taking stock of our milus and our chesainus. We need to know our milus. And with every personality, even a personality, like you said, that is an exploder, there are milus in that. And we need to hold on to our milus, and we need to know what the limitations are, what needs to be refined. So kol bnei adam, bli hevdel hayachas, megeza efrasim, megeza amoinim, bale maila v'chesaron hima. No matter where you come from, what your background is, no one is born without milus, even people from the most simple families, and no one's born without chesainus, even those from the best families. Everyone has their gift, which perfects humanity. So Everyone was given something to contribute to others. There's no one that doesn't have what to contribute. Each one of us are mashlim. It's mina b'nei adam. That's a chesroinus. Why are we giving chesroinus? Yishvil avodah. And we should have what to work on. So this is a very, very powerful thing to understand, both for ourselves and for our Talmidim. To understand that there's no one that doesn't have a gift, which means I have gifts for everyone, and every one of my Talmidim have gifts. Everyone has what to contribute to the class, and everyone has chesroinus. And without chesroinus, we wouldn't be here. There would be no point of being here. Our whole avodah is to work with these chesroinus. She'adam yavid in atzmai, l'tchoisam, la'akrim, l'shar shacharim, l'hakmes ba'atzmai, amaylis and usis t'murasam. We're supposed to take these chesroinus, outroot them, and change them for milas. And this is the greatest shlichus, this is the greatest thing that we can do. When we work on ourselves, this is what makes life rich. There's no greater satisfaction, there's no greater geschmack, there's no greater pleasure than transforming a weakness to a strength. He got a good field, he's dealing with good schayra, and he's matzliach, and he's anig. Can't compare the satisfaction to when he got a cheap garbage piece of land or chomer, and he made something special out of that. Besides the fact, good deal, he got a cheap land and he made a lot of money from it. He finds moral satisfaction from now. This is really my atzlacha. What's naturally good is not my atzlacha. What's naturally weak, and I turn that into a strength, that's a supernatural strength. That's my real atzlacha. So my ultimate sipuk from my own life is not going to be from working on those areas where I'm naturally strong. It's going to be from working on those areas where I'm naturally weak, and I'll be supernaturally strong. This is what gives us eternal satisfaction. The ultimate pleasure we're going to have from working in those areas where we're not naturally good, we're not naturally strong. So the ultimate avodah, you get the ultimate schar, is for taking the darkness, turning it into light, and the bitter into sweet. So again, I think this is something that helps us. What the Friedeker is saying over here helps us in a way. My personal experience of myself, understanding this nakuda helps us with what we spoke about in Perek. When we see how the ultimate success of people is in the areas where they're naturally weak, it gives us a reason to want to be honest about our weaknesses. I remember it was a certain tkuf of my life where there were people that I was close with that I knew very well, and they were struggling with real weaknesses. And I saw them changing. I saw them becoming such special people in the process that I was almost like jealous. I need to find my own weaknesses. I need to find my own addictions. I need to find something wrong with myself to work on so I could get this mila of avodah that these people have. It's like when you're dealing with Bali Tshuva, you get an appetite, you want to do tshuva. When you see people that are transformed, then it's a lot easier to be honest with yourself and say, hey, I don't feel threatened by having chesroinus. Adarabah, chesroinus are the ultimate opportunities in life. because the biggest success of my life is going to be transforming my chesarn. So that's the ultimate opportunity of my life. So if I'm blinded from seeing my chesarnis, I'm blinded from seeing my ultimate opportunities. So if there's going to be something I'm proud of, it's going to be what's not natural for me to do. And that's the same thing with Talmidim. If we understand that this is the ultimate hatzlacha, this is the ultimate purpose of our shlichus, this is the ultimate oisher, nitzchi, then it's not like the first day we're looking who are the good kids, those that are naturally going to do good in my class this year. And this is going to be my hatzlacha for this year. I spotted those kids, they're going to be the source of my hatzlacha this year. No. Those kids don't need you. Those kids might not even need a school. But if I find a kid that naturally this is going to be a tremendous struggle for me. This is a personality that triggers me. This is someone that has a hard time focusing, a hard time understanding. And I decide this is what this year is going to be about. This is the opportunity for real hatzlacha. So, number one, there's more satisfaction. In dealing in those areas where we're naturally weak, dealing with those talmidim that are naturally weak, there's a greater tainug, there's a greater feeling of satisfaction. But there's also something else. There's also something else. In those areas where we're naturally weak, we're not going to be naturally strong. In those areas where we're naturally weak, we're going to be supernaturally strong. And that's going to be the most special areas in our life. Not just we're going to appreciate it more. We're going to be more appreciated, and we're going to reach a different depth. We need to put it this way. We have our koiches hagiluyim. Everyone has in their set of koiches hagiluyim where they're strong and where they're weak. In order to become strong in the area where we're weak, we need to bring out koiches from our koiches hanalamim. We need to dig into a deeper reservoir in our nefesh, where we're not limited by our character, we're not limited by our nature. We have to rise above our nature. Automatically, in that area that we're fighting, that we're digging in deeper to ourselves, the hatzlacha is going to be a much more special hatzlacha. The fact is that the most powerful accomplishments, the most powerful books or whatever it is, teachers, people that can help people, are people that went through, it's not that they're naturally here. I prepared the slide. Okay, if you have a choice to choose a book on how to become more organized. Okay, so we could have From a Mess to a Message by Osborne Massey to Master the Art of Organization by Organized from Birth. So which would you buy? So there's really no choice, because I don't know if Master the Art of Organization by Organized from Birth is a book that has anything written inside. Because people that are naturally organized can't really write a book. You know, their organization might have mindless, it might also have a concern, it might be OCD, it might be that they can't see a mess. They're addicted to things being organized and they're busy doing that all day and can't do anything else. But what's for sure is there's no depth, there's no method, there's nothing they could teach you. That's the way they are naturally. If they're naturally not critical, they're not going to teach you how to not be critical. It might be a dug machaya. You look at them and say, wow, I wish I could have that. But could they tell you how to do it? They don't do it. That's who they are. There's no depth. A person that's a so first of all, this is deeper. This is neshama. For this, you need something l'mayla min hateva, right? You need a deeper koyach. And that this is something they could teach you. That there's a certain path that they took, there's a certain method that worked for them. They have a message to the world. So I think this is a very important nekuda, and it helps us get out of that state where we're hiding over our chesaronis from ourselves, not being ready to acknowledge them. We realize that that's really our ultimate opportunity. Sai for ourselves and Saya will, where we're going to shine in the deepest way, it opens us up to find them. Rabbi Blau, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm on your line. I think you have a lot of examples like this. Is that, let's say in working with older Talmidim, So, Bechlal, Yidden are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. A lot of us are gifted that we never struggled with Shilas and Emunah. We believe in the Eibishter, Natirlich. And there's something very beautiful to that. And there's something very beautiful to take your Emunah and to constantly strengthen it. However, what I've observed is that people that have struggled with Emunah have been that much more effective in helping a Talmud struggling with Emunah than someone who has absolutely strong, unwavering Emunah, but he never struggled. Because if he never struggled, erstens bei sich es nicht bearbeitet, he also lacks the relatability component. So he's a dugma, in other words, he's a wow, you can learn from him, that's unbelievable, but it's not necessarily in the same impact. I believe Ledugma, again, maybe using a name, it's Shais Taub, became somewhat, an address to many people struggling with addictions or whatever it is. And he's not shy about the fact that the only reason he's able to help these people is because is durchgearbeitet. So I believe there's actually, a letter from the Rebbe, but I can't recall it offhand. So I won't say it for sure, but that the Eibishter gives us struggles. In other words, you can say this in two efanim. The Friedrich Rebbe wrote earlier that the milas that we have are, so to speak, the gift of society. And the chisreinis that we have is the Eibishter giving us a personal challenge, a meaning in life, an avodah, right? Right before mashlimas hanushiyas, hachesreinis b'shvil ha'avodah. But to some degree, it's nach tifer. When the chesreinis are then iber gearbeitet, that's be'etzem the biggest gift to society. The biggest mashlimis hanushiyas is when a person has a chisaron, embraces the chisaron, works with the chisaron, he's megala such an oir by zich, and with this oir, can bashainen, arum zich as well. It's
there's the famous what looks apparently as a steer from one side. There's so many times that it brings in the letter so much. When a person is struggling in a certain area, so that's a simon that's his shlichus. The areas was succumbed on green, he must have already refined that part of his nefesh in an earlier gilgul. Was kumtum schwer. That's why he came back down to this world again to work on this. He's gonna shy away from working on it. He's missing the whole purpose of what he came to the world for. From the other side, you see so many letters where the Rebbe says, if you see I have strength in the area, then that's your shlichus. In that area where you're strong, to share that. Like the Friedrich Rebbe was saying over here, that's mashlim anushis. So is my shlichus what's my pointer of what I should be doing? My strengths or my weaknesses? So the pashtus, these are the two areas. Every neshama has a double shlichus. A neshama from one side is not a means to an end. And there's no such thing as him going on a shlichus just for others. There has to be a matara for the neshama as well. And he has to be mashlim himself. The b'poil, a yid is selfless. And everything that we're doing is for others. We have a shlichus. Ani lo nivresi el l'shamash eskoin. The bria chelik, at least, I have to be doing for others as well. When it comes to others, the Rebbe doesn't say, if you don't know Aleph, teach Aleph. If you know Aleph, teach Aleph. What's already perfected by you, you're supposed to share with others. Well, your neshama came down here to work on yourself as well. You came down to work on yourself in the areas of your chesonis. As soon as you perfected those chesonis, you turn them into a maila, then kemuva, if it comes from the things that you know, and you share it, and not only could you share it, there's a maila and dafka sharing it, ibergarbe mida, then sharing a natural mida. And again, there's the beauty in both. There's the beauty of the tzaddik and of al shuvah. Each one has what the other one doesn't have. But what's special, any special message, that's not just regular and nice to look at, that's something that you can, that's really inspiring and changes you, gives you something that you can really change from, is when it's coming from someone that went through that process. They're sharing their process with you.
Right. If I can go back to this nakuda, this, so to speak, this stira that you mentioned, a faneinzeit, you have to work, when a person is trying to figure out his shlichos between focusing on what the Eibishter gave you, what are your natural strengths, and what are your, so to speak, was kommt an schwer. So you mentioned, in other words, this farzich and this faryenim. There's also, I just want to back up for a minute, that this thing, besides it being in the sichis, my father mentioned to me that he asked this question to the Rebbe himself in Yechidus, that he, I don't remember at what age, but he asked the Rebbe if the Rebbe could be megalat to him what his shlichus is. So the Rebbe told him, es ist schwer zu wissen bei sich, und es ist something to the effect, und sicher zu sagen jenem. In other words, it's hard, a person for himself, it's hard to uncover what is the ikar ani nivreis l'shamash eskoini that I'm here for in this world. What is my ikar avuch b'may avazar tfei, that with my neshama is the only one that I can accomplish. It's certainly hard to tell someone else, but the Rebbe told him, aber seda klalen dem, as was es kumt an schwer, is more simin that's where it is. But like you mentioned, many times we say, what's your chushim? So I think another piece to be mindful of is that a lot of times we find that my chushim are in an area of vasekumtan shverechet. In other words, many times it actually goes together. It's not just two stages for zichem for yenim. A person, sometimes you can have, let's talk in chinuch where we're coming from. A person that has gewaltige chushim in chinuch may find it very hard to stay in chinuch, or may find it very hard to dedicate. Why? So over here is where the two of them almost complement each other, and they're really pointing to the same direction. Sekum deran shver. But on the other hand, you see clearly you have chushim adirim over here. So you have two arrows pointing. In other words, the same arrow that's pointing you out is be'etzem pointing you towards, inwards. These are your chushim. The fact that sekum tan shver only further solidifies that that's normal indication of where I belong. Because something which is my shlichus, and I have chushim in this, but sekum tan azay gringer hate, is lav dafka simin, that this is my ikar shlichus ba'ilam. Or al derech zeh with limit ha-Torah, a person can have a gewaldige head, he could sit and learn. Sevil tzichem nish, sekum tan shver. He'll rather do something that's not Torah related. Many, many times we can find that the two of them will land in the same exact spot. You have chushim adirim and yet kshoyim that keep preventing you and telling you, this is not for me. I just can't do it. I just can't schlep myself. I don't have a geschmack in it. I don't find satisfaction in it.
Interessant. So he's saying it's a weakness in that same area, or is it a weakness in consistency?
Right. It's a struggle either internally or externally. In other words, it could be internally that I'm good at it, but I don't like it. I'm not happy, so I don't want to do it anymore. Or environmental struggles. It's not working out for me to do it. It's not working out. It's not coming easy. Sometimes we like to think, if the Eibishter wants me to be in this shlichus, so then why is he giving me these shredekait? Sometimes he on a senes.
Very interesting. Okay.
Very well. So we'll continue next week.
Be'ez Hashem next,
Yeah.
next
The
class.
Chelik Sheni of Perek Daled.
Yeah.
Kol Tov,
Okay.
Yashper B'Shlema.
Good work.